The rippling waters of Lake Vyrnwy, which nestles in the foothills of the Vyrnwy Mountains on the southern edge of Snowdonia. This is one of the wettest places in Britain, and the rainfall is tracked by the vast expanse of the upper moorlands. The lake is refreshed by the many falls, sending the water cascading off the hills. On rare occasions, the rolling clouds part, flooding the beautiful Lake Vyrnwy in sunshine. At the head of the valley, the tree-lined slopes give way to a contrast of foliage and rock. At the southern end of the lake, the valley narrows, and it becomes very obvious that this is not a natural piece of water. As the story of the lake unfolds, we will find that over 100 years ago, the inhabitants suffered an upheaval that was to change their way of life. A small car park off the valley road has an intriguing name. Below the water lie the remains of Llanwddyn, a small 19th century village, typical of many in mid-Wales. There were inns and a church, as well as several shops and houses. On the eastern flank of the valley, the River Vyrnwy meandered down from the northern hills, making much of the land very boggy. "60 miles to the north, the town of Liverpool was growing very rapidly, due to the fortunes made from the goods flowing through the docks. Water became very scarce and was cut off for many hours every day. The number of cases of waterborne diseases such as cholera rose alarmingly. New sources of clean water had to be found, and the Liverpool Corporation looked at many places. 2 were at Haweswater and Thirlmere in Cumbria. After much debate, the Water Committee decided that the Vyrnwy Valley was the most suitable for the building of a dam and lake. An Act of Parliament was passed on the 6th of August 1880 for what would become the largest artificial reservoir in Europe. While all this was going on, the villagers carried on with their normal lives. Several farms and large houses were spread round the valley, even though large areas of boggy ground meant that very few crops were grown. Most of the inhabitants lived in the small village, with Pont Cedig at its centre. West of the bridge were the Church of St John and the principal hotel, the Powys Arms. This was used by a small number of visitors who came to fish and shoot in the valley. Sitting outside the porch were the owners, the Davis sisters. The road leading north was Fish Street, and the only one of these villagers we know is the young girl in the centre, Llanwddyn Morris. On the road south was the Cross Guns, a small inn run by Margaret Ellis and her brother David Hughes. Opposite was the post office, owned by Jane Jones. The man loitering outside was John Ellis, the wheelwright. Further on was the Wesleyan Methodist Chapel, of which the caretaker's house was used as a shop by Elizabeth Owen. Building of the dam officially started on the 14th of July 1881, when a large group joined the 3rd Earl of Powys as he unveiled a plaque at the southeast end of the dam. The one thing that made a masonry dam possible was the bar of hard rock across the mouth of the valley. This was an ideal surface on which to support the tons of masonry that would be used. A supply of the same hard rock was needed for the dam itself. This was found only a mile to the north, and so a quarry was opened. A primitive flood lighting system had to be erected because work went on from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. weekdays and 6 a.m. to noon on Sundays. A 3-foot gauge railway was built to transport the blocks of stone, some as heavy as 10 tons. The first task was to excavate down to the bedrock so that there was a firm base on which to build the foundations. The rock surface was jagged, and so projecting points were blasted off. Also, the bedrock sloped and had to be stepped to accept the stonework. By 1883, the masonry was 35 feet high, but still well below the original ground level on the right. During the next 2 years, the height of the dam doubled and was now above ground level. Over the final 2 years, the dam rose to its full height and the stonework to support the road finished. It was the first in the country to carry overflow water over its crest. The straining tower allows water to be drawn from the lake and filtered to remove rubbish before it passes down pipes to Liverpool. The 28th of November 1888 was the date the villagers would always remember. The dam was sufficiently complete for the valves to be closed. The water rose to cover the fields, and the buildings that were to be submerged were pulled down. Many had never ventured far from the valley, and it must have been hard to accept that their lives had been changed for the benefit of people living many miles away. The dam was completed by 1890, when the lake was full, and the first water was delivered to Liverpool in 1892. Before the village could be flooded, many new houses had to be built for the inhabitants of the original village. The old church of St. John was replaced by a new one on a hill above the dam. Before the valves could be closed, the old graves had to be carefully moved to the new churchyard. The Powys Arms was replaced by the Lake Vyrnwy Hotel, originally run by the Davis sisters. Very occasionally, the ghosts from the past make an appearance when the level of the lake drops dramatically. The present Vyrnwy Valley has not changed a great deal over the last 100 years. It still welcomes visitors, but keeps the peaceful calm that they have always come to enjoy.